name is David Engberg. I work as a business development manager at Perstorp in Sweden. The topic of my talk today is tuning radiation curing for today's regulatory requirements. So, first I just want to say a few brief words about Perstorp, who we are. Perstorp is a Swedish leading global supplier of raw materials for resin coatings and adhesives. We're not the biggest of companies, but the products that we are focusing on and the segments, we are actually the number one leading in more than half of the products that we're offering. Since October last year, we're actually a wholly owned subsidiary of Petronas Chemical Group. So we're now being integrated into the Petronas family. But today I want to talk a little bit about radiation curing. We, and many with us, we see the advantages and believe that radiation curing is really a winning, sustainable technology for the future. There is a lot of advantages with this technology being with very low or even zero VOC. It has very high performance in terms of both fast curing, being highly with a strong production, and also performance in terms of product quality, durability, chemical resistance. But there is challenges also with radiation curing, especially when it comes to regulatory status. So here I take up a few examples, 3 different concrete examples of some regulatory challenges that we see within radiation curing today. The first one is the TMPTA, or the TMP triacrylate, which is really have been a staple within radiation curing in terms of reactive diluents for enabling low viscosity and having high reactive formulations. However, the TMPTA has been classified as cancerogenic category 2B, which means that we need to start to find alternatives in the industry to avoid this hazard risk. Another example is the bisphenol A, which has for many years been a staple also within radiation curing in epoxy resins and in monomers like the badge. Here is also a lot of concern and restrictions from like the Nestle guidance notes have banned it. So for anything related to food packaging in Europe, you are struggling to use this. The Swiss ordinance has limited the use of it. And recently, Germany as a country has proposed to ECA that the tolerable limit is going to be lowered to 10 ppm in mixtures and articles. Also, EFSA, the European Food Safety Authority, is re-evaluating what levels they are allowing as contamination in food, moving it from 4 micrograms down to 0.4 nanograms, which is actually a decrease by 100,000, which will in practice mean that it will be impossible to use BPA in anything related to food and food packaging. Yeah? Finally, also on the topic of food packaging, we have migration. This has for a long time been a concern within radiation curing, to have components, low molecular weight components, migrate from packaging into food. The focus has been on photoinitiators, but also in terms of monomers and low molecular weight oligomers can also be a concern on this. And this is actually one of the reasons that some of the major brand owners, they have actually decided not to benefit from the benefits that we know that radiation curing can give. So, how can we address these issues then? Well, starting then with the TMPTA. There are alternatives, which is good. So some of the alternatives that we from Perstorp are suggesting are the ethoxylated versions of TMP. So you have TMP with 3 EO or TMP with 4 EO. So from Perstorp we have these, the products name are polyol R36000 and the polyol R3540 here. And especially the polyol R3540 can be produced with a very low content of free TMP to adhere to these new regulations and to minimize the amount of TMPTA in it. Another alternative can be another product from Perstorp, which is actually the penta erythritol. This can be available in a triacrylate version, which of course is completely TMP-free, as that is a completely separate production. And that can, in some cases, also be a good alternative to the TMPTA. So with these solutions, they are completely safe, no classifications, and they can sometimes even be used in as drop-in replacement. And sometimes, of course, you need to tweak formulations when you are replacing the TMPTA. Coming back to the migration issue, there are ways to address this as well. And of course, one way to do this is by using high functional, high reactive monomers that are able to cross-link well into the network so they're not migrating. And as a bonus, you will also get increased reactivity, which address another trend that we have within UV, which is the switch into LED. The traditional mercury lights, they are being banned because of the concern and ban on mercury. So the whole industry is basically shifting into LED lights instead. The problem with the LED is that they are more limited in terms of wavelength and have much lower power than the traditional lights. So hence, you need to compensate by using resin that have higher reactivity and that can boost the reaction of the formulations to a higher level. And then to produce these resins, you can use a number of different polyols that Perstorp has available, like the dipenta, which is a 6-functional, and can be used to produce the DPHA or the dipentahexacrylate. We also have an ethoxylated version of the dipenta. Or you can use di-TMP or the penta that I mentioned before as well, that are also high functional and very suitable for this type of applications when they're being acrylated. Finally, we also have quite a unique structure, which we sell under the name of Boltorn, which is a highly functional dendritic polyol. That can be up to 64 functional in one molecule. So that is really pushing it to the edge in terms of functionality, reactivity, and being a safe, low migration monomer. Another thing I wanted to show you today is a bit of a new polyol that is still being explored by ourselves and many of our customers. This is called PSG, or pentaspiroglycol. I mentioned before the concern on BPA. So there is a gap on the market for rigid, hard molecules that can, to some extent, compensate them and maybe in some applications replace it. And we believe that the PSG in some applications could be a potential use for this. It's a rigid cyclic aliphatic diol. It enables high TG, high crystallinity. It has the primary hydroxyl groups with high reactivity and the neo structure that the majority of our polyols already have, which enables good hydrolytic resistance and UV resistance. So this, we believe, can have quite a good potential applications in UV curing, if it's turned into a diglycidyl ether, for example, or being acrylated as it is. It does actually also have potential applications outside UV curing in segments like liquid polyesters, 2K polyurethanes, and even in PUD polyurethane dispersions. So, summarizing my talk a little bit then, we believe and we think that radiation curing is really a winning, strong technology that will continue to grow and find more and more applications. There are challenges, especially on the regulatory side, that we need to work together in the industry to overcome. And we, Perstorp, we are ready to support and be a leading supplier that can be ready to support you in your toughest challenges, both in terms of performance and regulatory. Thank you very much for listening, and I'm happy to take any questions if there are.